Hey guys, what's going on? Darren here, and welcome to my Austrian Grand Prix preview and predictions. This is a series where I'll be previewing and then giving my predictions for the upcoming Grand Prix. Not only though will I be giving out my predictions, but more importantly, I want to hear what are your predictions? What do you think is going to happen in this upcoming Grand Prix? Who do you think will take pole position? And who do you think will win the Austrian Grand Prix? Please do let me know down below. I read every comment and I try to respond to every comment as well. So yeah, let's get a conversation going. Who do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to be on pole position? Who do you think is going to be the top three? Hell, who do you think is going to do the most pit stops? Who do you think is going to do the most overtakes? Just anything. Please do let me know down below and I'll respond to pretty much every single comment. But before we talk about the Austrian Grand Prix, let's quickly review what was quite frankly an epic British Grand Prix, a race at Silverstone that absolutely had it all. And where do we even begin with this race? Because there was just so much to talk about. Firstly, let's get this out the way quickly. I want to say thank God for the Halo. The Halo absolutely did its job, and thankfully Guan Yu Zhou, or Zhou Guan Yu, was able to walk away from what was an absolutely frightening accident at Turn 1. It seemed that what happened was George Russell got a pretty poor start, and sadly I think he was unaware that Pierre Gasly was going to be going for a move down I guess the left hand side of George Russell, and Russell was cutting off that spot because of course he saw Nicholas Latifi get a great start and jump past him, so he was just cutting across to stop anyone else from doing the same thing, and sadly Pierre Gasly was there, and that, you know, of course clipped Russell into Guan Yu Zhou, or Zhou Guan Yu, sorry, and you know that of course caused that incident. But thankfully Zhou Guan Yu was able to walk away from that incident, and thankfully he will be racing at the Austrian Grand Prix, which is just incredible. There's no way that would have happened about 15 years ago. There's no way Zhou Guan Yu would be competing in the next race if that was about 15 years ago. But let's talk more about the actual race itself, and I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that I truly believe that Ferrari threw away an easy 1-2 race. That should have been a 1-2 for Ferrari, with Charles Leclerc winning from Carlos Sainz in second, especially after both Red Bull cars suffered damage. Perez with that broken front wing, which admittedly came from the fact that Charles Leclerc had hit him. But also Max Verstappen suffering some weird floor damage. I don't really know what was happening there. I feel like he maybe lost a bit of the floor as he ran over some debris, which that was pretty interesting. I don't think I expected that, because I didn't think there was that much debris on track, but apparently there was, and he did suffer some floor damage. But because of that, that should have been an easy 1-2 for Ferrari, especially when the safety car came out. Charles Leclerc had enough time and enough of a gap for Ferrari to bring both drivers in, do a double stack, and then come out in first and second place. But for some reason they didn't do it, and I do truly believe that they threw away an easy 1-2. And understandably, because of that, Charles Leclerc was fuming. He was furious that Ferrari essentially messed up the strategy, which is just, it's peak Ferrari at this point, let's be honest. Yeah, he was much faster than Carlos Sainz in that Grand Prix. He was faster despite having front wing damage. You've got to remember, the front left of his wing, the end fence, was broken off. He had 5 points less front downforce, but somehow he was all over the back and faster than Carlos Sainz, up until of course that final pit stop, which of course brought Sainz back into it. And yeah, he's got every reason to be furious because of that, because I do believe that this was a golden opportunity for Ferrari to really close that gap to Max Verstappen at the top of the championship. But instead of doing that, they only closed the gap by about 6 points, which it's just not good enough for them. They really have to do something soon in order to get back in this championship fight. But let's talk about a driver who did an absolutely epic job. And Carlos Sainz did do a fantastic job. It was so good to see Carlos Sainz win his first Grand Prix. Even if I do think Charles Leclerc was faster, it was still great to see that Carlos Sainz was able to win his first Grand Prix. And another driver who did absolutely incredibly at Silverstone is the hometown boy, Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton was on an absolute charge in front of his home fans, and there was a point in that race where I truly thought that Hamilton was going to win that Grand Prix. I really thought that he was going to beat Charles Leclerc. Before that first pit stop, Hamilton was really closing the gap on Charles, and it did look like if he had an opportunity, he was definitely going to take it, and we really could have seen Hamilton win that race in front of his home fans, which that just would have been an incredible thing to see in front of his home fans after the season that he's had so far. But he didn't manage it, but he did manage a podium, and that was a really important podium, I think, for Hamilton and his season, and that, I think, has ignited now what's going to be a great comeback from Mercedes into the second half of this season. And also, I just want to say, it was so good to watch that race, because just in general, the cars, they were able to follow each other so closely, and it really created an epic Grand Prix, especially after that safety car. And I think we're going to see more of the same at the Red Bull Ring for the Austrian Grand Prix. I really do think we're going to see more of that, and it's going to be a great race. But now, let's talk about Austria, and here's some stats from the Austrian Grand Prix last year. I'm not going to count the Styrian Grand Prix, we're just going to do the Austrian Grand Prix. Last year, there were 34 overtakes and 27 pit stops, as a mixture of drivers did between 1 and 2 stops. And I think that's going to be very important for this year's Grand Prix, that there was a mixture of 1 and 2 pit stops. Max Verstappen dominated the race, winning by 18 seconds from Valtteri Bottas, who finished in second place, and Norris, who was in third. The tyre selection from last year's Austrian Grand Prix is actually the same as this year, with the hard tyres being the C3, the mediums being the C4, and the soft tyres being the C5 compound. With this in mind, I genuinely think I'll be shocked if they get through the whole Grand Prix doing just the one stop. The tyres this year in general have proven to degrade faster than they did last year, and if tyre wear was an issue last season, where some teams had to do 2 stops instead of just the 1, then I do believe that this year it will absolutely be a massive factor, with a lot of teams doing 2 stops. And I do think at the front of the field we might even see some teams do a 3-stop strategy in order to try and maybe get a jump on their rivals. Let's say Charles Leclerc's getting close to one of the Red Bulls, but he can't quite get past him. Maybe then Ferrari's going to do a 3-stop, bring him in, put him on a fresh set of tyres and see what he can do, and maybe see if he can jump the cars that way, if that forces a Red Bull in, or if maybe he's able to close the gap and with the overspeed of the fresher tyres, get past the other cars. I do think that's something that we could see, and I think it's going to be very interesting in this Grand Prix to see how the tyre wear does play out and the number of stops go. Now to the team themselves, and let's start with Red Bull. I've got a feeling that Red Bull are going to be very confident going into this race. Max Verstappen dominated both races last year, both the Styrian and the Austrian Grand Prix. And the Red Bull this year is a rocket ship in a straight line. It is a very, very fast car in a straight line. And I think this will be absolutely perfect for them in their fight against the Ferraris. Red Bull, you've got to remember, have been able to beat Ferrari at circuits that should have suited the Scuderia. Spain, Monaco and Baku should have been perfect for Ferrari, but yet somehow in all of these races, Red Bull came out on top in each race. And I've got to be honest, with that in mind, I'll be surprised if there's anything other than a Red Bull 1-2 this weekend. Now, Ferrari, they've got a lot of work to do. If they really want to get back in this championship fight, they've got so much work to do. There's been a lot of errors recently and a massive lack of reliability, and I think that's truly derailed their championship prospects, especially with Charles Leclerc. He started the season so triumphantly, dominating the Australian Grand Prix, winning the Bahrain Grand Prix, and since then he's just fallen backwards. And the reality is, none of this has been his fault. He was leading comfortably in Spain, Monaco, and even in Baku, but yet somehow he lost each of those races. He broke down in Spain, he broke down in Baku, and, well, Ferrari went all Ferrari in Monaco. Silverstone was another race where Charles was on dominant form. He was faster than Carlos Sainz despite having a broken front wing, and he was in prime position, I think, to win that Grand Prix, if not for the lack of Ferrari reaction to Esteban Ocon breaking down. He will be desperate, I think, to get some sort of momentum going back his way, but with that being said, I do think it'll be difficult for him this weekend to find some, just due to the Red Bull straight line speed. Now, a team that has recently found a lot of momentum is Mercedes. They've seen a massive jump in form since they brought their new upgrades to Silverstone, and those upgrades did seem to work very nicely, and I've got to say it will be very interesting to see if they can carry that forward to Austria. The reason I think it'll be interesting is because despite the Red Bull Ring being a fairly flat surface, the Red Bull Ring has some notoriously difficult curves, and it'll be interesting to me to see if they are able to ride those curves with their car, because we have seen in previous races that that's where they've been struggling. Silverstone had a lot of flat curves. Red Bull Ring has some absolutely dangerous curves that are well known to destroy cars, so it'll be interesting to see if they can take those curves with their new floors. Now, to my predictions for this Austrian Grand Prix, and for qualifying, I'm going to base qualifying off of the normal 3-session qualifying, not the sprint race, because I do know it is a sprint weekend, but we're going to do qualifying as if it was the normal 3-session one. And I've got to go for Max Verstappen for pole position. I just can't see any other driver getting pole position. The Red Bull has such a big straight line speed advantage that I will be genuinely shocked if Ferrari can do anything about it. And with that in mind, I think in the Grand Prix we're going to see a mixture of 2 and 3 stop strategies. I think the teams at the front are going to do 3 stops, and then some of the midfield teams will do just a 2 stop. But for the Grand Prix itself, I've got to go for Max Verstappen to win the Austrian Grand Prix from Sergio Perez in 2nd place, and I think Charles Leclerc will finish in 3rd place. Why? Well, Charles Leclerc, he's on such fantastic form. None of what's happened has been his fault. He has had a fantastic season so far, with only Imola being where he's really made a mistake. And I think he'll carry that forward and he'll have another fantastic race, but I just can't see him getting in amongst it against those Red Bulls. Maybe he'll get Perez, maybe, but I just can't see it. I do think we're going to get a Red Bull 1-2 with Verstappen winning, Perez 2nd, and Charles Leclerc in 3rd place. And in the midfield, so we're also going to do a bit where we're going to talk about the top midfield team. And I'm going to say that the top midfield team will be Alpine. Alpine have shown that they have a great car in a straight line. We saw that in Montreal, we saw that in Baku, and I think we're going to see it again at the Red Bull Ring. And I do think the top midfield team will be Alpine. But that's what I think. More importantly, I want to know, what do you guys think down in the comment section below? Please do drop a comment. I do, of course, read all the comments, and I will be responding to each comment, each prediction, each preview, what you think is going to be happening. Please do let me know down below, and if you haven't already, of course, comment, leave a like, and if you haven't already, of course, subscribe to the channel for more F1 content. I'm so excited for the Austrian Grand Prix. I hope you guys are as well. I think it's going to be a great race. And I just want to say thank you all so much for watching all of my videos and subscribing and showing me a lot of love. I do feel that love, and I really do appreciate it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more F1 content. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.